Ladies and champions, I welcome you all to solve top 30 questions from the chapter that is Evolution, and this is a series that we have begun for people who have opted for biology in KCET 2025. So I hope this particular series is of use for you. Okay, you're getting benefit of it. If you're getting benefit of it, do not forget to comment it down that yes ma'am, we want more of these type of content. We would love to give you. So if you have any ideas around it, you can tell us in the comment section, and if you're liking it, then also you can tell us. And there's only one rule in my series, and that is what? Whenever I show you a question, try it by yourself and then only look for my answer. Got it? In that way we are going to analyze our preparation. Ayo. Starting with the first question, which of these is not an example of adaptive radiation? What do you mean by adaptive radiation? And you are asked, which among this is not an example of adaptive radiation? So adaptive radiation means you have a geographical area. In this geographical area, there will be center point. Okay, from here, some group of organisms are moving to different locations within this geographical area. And basically they are bringing certain changes in themselves according to the habitat. So here you have a different type of habitat. For example, here there is too much amount of insects. Over here there is a habitat which has too much amount of seeds. So there was Darwin's finches, a type of birds, okay, finches. So finches basically they moved around an island which is known as Galapagos Island. They moved to this area, they moved to this area, and then a type of finches developed over here. They evolutionarized over here. So the ones that had beak, which could, with the help of which it could eat insects, those kind of had their own evolution is here. Similarly, those that had beak like this, which could eat the seed, evolutionarized over here. So from one common ancestor, you're getting different species over here. This is known as adaptive radiation. So Darwin finches is an example, Australian marsupials are example, placental mammals are example. This is given in your NCERT. What is not the example is long-necked giraffe. This is not the example. Long-necked giraffe has nothing to do with adaptive radiation. There was no common organism which went to different location. That's not how long-necked giraffe came in through. So this is not an example of adaptive radiation. Next. In a population of 800 rabbits showing Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, okay, according to Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, this is the frequency of dominant, individuals. This is the frequency of recessive individuals is equals to 1. This is the thing. Now, here, the frequency of recessive individuals was 0.16. Recessive individuals means you are talking about a condition like this, where there are two alleles which are recessive. So, here it is said that Q square is equals to A and it is equals to 0.16. So what will be Q? Q will be, and that will be 0.4. So you know Q is 0.4. This is the frequency of recessive allele. Frequency of recessive allele, my dear children. Okay, this was the frequency of recessive individuals, and for individual to be recessive, both the allele have to be same. So it is 0.16. Now 0.16, if we see what is the root of it, it is 0.4. So this is the recessive of one allele. This is 0.4, this is 0.4, into you get 0.16. Now you know this. If you know this, you can calculate what is P also. If you know this, you can calculate what is P. So P plus Q is equals to 1. If Q is equals to 0.4, it is equals to 1, then P will be equal to 1 minus 0.4, which means it is equals to 0.6. So now you have P and now you have Q. And what you have to find? You have to find what is the frequency of heterozygous individuals. What do you mean by heterozygous? It should be having both this allele, okay, the capital allele and the small allele, like this. So if this is 0.6, if this is 0.4, so what is the combination of this? This will be 0.24. Agree? 0.24. But is it? That's it? No. The frequency of heterozygous individuals is denoted by this. So you have to multiply it with a 2 also. So it becomes 0.48. How did we get this, ma'am? So basically if I expand this, it is P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equals to 1. That is the thing. Now P square means you're talking about this 0.6 into 0.6. Q square means you're talking about this. So basically 0.4 into 0.4. 2PQ means you're talking about the heterozygous individuals, the one that has both the alleles. So it will be 2 into 0.6 into 0.4. Hence your answer becomes what? 0.48. Cool. So it is mentioned recessive individual. If it was mentioned recessive allele, then that means Q is equals to 0.16. But recessive individuals means you're talking about this condition. So in that case, you have to take a square root of this. I hope you got it. Cool. So next, the first human-like being is Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, Homo menthis, Homo habilis. So first human-like being was Homo habilis. I remember it, Habibi. From Homo habilis came Homo erectus. From Homo erectus came Homo sapiens and then Homo Neanderthalensis. And before Homo habilis, you had Australopithecus. Before that, you had Ramapithecus. So if you're someone who is there for solving questions with me, I hope you know that. Do not be worried when I write like this. You get a hold of it when you are very thorough with this. Now if you think that you are not thorough with the topic, I would recommend you, I made the whole evolution video, the chapter video in the NEET playlist series. You can go watch it. It will be really, really helpful for you. Okay. So Ramapithecus came. Ramapithecus and one more thing came, that is Dryopithecus. Dryopithecus had, okay, it had given rise to it had more of ape-like features, whereas Ramapithecus, they were the one that gave rise to humans. So this was the series of event. So the first human-like being was Homo habilis. Cool? Chalo. Which among the following was the biggest land dinosaur? Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Tyrannosaurus rex, Brachiosaurus. So biggest land dinosaur was Tyrannosaurus rex, which was almost 20 feet tall. 20 feet tall. Just imagine how huge it might be, right? So it was 20 feet tall. It was Tyrannosaurus rex, directly given in your NCERT. Direct question. Now, in a population of plants, some were extremely tall. So, in a population of plant, if I make a graph, some were extremely tall and the remaining were extremely dwarf. So, these are two extreme conditions. Some were extremely tall and some were extremely dwarf. No plants of the population showed intermediate height. So, this was for tall, this was for dwarf. There was no one in the intermediate height. Okay, this type of operation of natural selection in the above case is what? So when basically it moves away like this, when it is supporting two extreme characters, you will call this as disruptive. You will call this as disruptive. Now I think I have the NCERT picture. No, I do not have. So basically, suppose if over here there was just intermediate level height to all plants. In that case, it would have been stabilizing. Okay, and third scenario, where basically there were only dwarf, no tall, no intermediate, nothing. It is moving towards that side. This means you're talking about directional. Whenever one extreme is being chosen, it is directional. Okay, when this is happening, it is known as, when two extremes are being chosen together, it is known as disruptive. It is disrupting the whole thing. It's like moving towards away. Over here, this is the stabilizing one. Cool. So if you have extreme features over here, just understand you're talking about disruptive. If it is saying that there is only extremely tall, that means it is directional. If it is saying there is only intermediate height ones, that means it is stabilizing. Cool. Next, the brain capacity of Homo habilis. The brain capacity of Homo habilis is, Baba, 650 cc to 800 cc. So when we evolved, the brain capacity was small, then it became larger. It became larger with time. So I will tell you one very important thing over here itself. Australopithecus had a brain capacity of 500 cc. Okay, Homo habilis had it around 650 to 800 cc. Homo erectus had it around 900 cc. Homo sapiens, it is not given. Homo neanderthalensis had around 1400 cc. So see, we have evolved and our brain capacity have increased eventually. Okay, so over here you see 500. From Australopithecus you have to find 500, then 650 to 800, then 900, then basically this thing, it's 900, okay, 9,000. And now it is 1400 cc. So you are asked about what? The brain capacity of Homo habilis. So it's 650 to 800 cc. Please remember that. So the brain capacity is kind of important. There are so many questions around it. So keep a note of that. Works. Chalo, next. In bougainvillea and cucurbita, the axillary bud is modified into thorn and tendril respectively. This is an example of. So suppose this is the, this is what? Cucurbita. And over here you have the axillary bud, and this axillary bud in the case of cucurbita is modifying into a tendril. Okay. Now on the other hand, this was axillary bud, but it is now forming a thorn over here. This is in the case of bougainvillea. Now the thing is, children, over here, the anatomical structure, if you see, it was initially what? Axillary bud only. But they are staying in different habitat. Over here, it has to crawl, it has to get up. Okay, so basically that's why it has tendril. Over there, it has a different scenario where it needs protection. So that's why it has become a thorn. So because of different habitats, what is happening? The same structure is evolving into different things. This is an example of divergent evolution. This is an example of divergent evolution. And these organs that you see, okay, which are anatomically, if you see internally, it's kind of similar only. It is known as homologous structure. Homologous structure. So I say it is HD. Always remember HD. HD view. Clear, clarity view. Okay, you can remember like that. So this is an example of divergent evolution. My cutest little champions. Works? Next one. The primary gases that were used by Miller in his experiment are. So Miller was the one who said that, yes, basically the organic compounds that we see today, okay, or basically the life form that we see today, they came from the organic compounds. The life form that we see today, they came from the organic compounds. Actually, this was said by Oparin and Haldane, not Handel. Oh my God, so sorry, Haldane. Okay, it was Oparin and Haldane who said that organic compounds were the ones that came together to form different life forms that we see today. Now, where did this organic compound came from? It came from inorganic compounds. It came from inorganic things. Okay, like what? So when the earth was beginning, okay, when basically life was getting formed, at this point of time it was just a molten lava. There was nothing else. There was only few gases. What were those? It was methane, which is known as CH4, and then ammonia, which is NH3, and then you had water vapor, and you had certain gases, CO2 also, and then you had certain gases like hydrogen and helium. So these guys, they came together to form the organic compounds such as what? Amino acids and nucleotides. Now, how did these things give rise to life forms, ma'am? Basically, my dear little champions, amino acids were the one that comes together to form what? To form proteins. Nucleotides, they come together to form what? DNA, RNA and everything. And our genetic material, our cells are made up of these things only. So this is how the life forms came into existence. So to prove this, Miller did an experiment in which he made sure that only these things were there. Few of these things were there, and the atmosphere was very reducing, as in there was no oxygen. Okay, it was a reducing atmosphere, and the temperature was kind of really high because it is a molten mass, no? So we are recreating something like that. And he wanted to find out whether organic compounds could be formed or not. And he was successful. He saw that organic compounds were forming. So this was said by Oparin and Haldane, but the scientific proof was given by Miller. So what all did he need, that children? Over here he needed CH4, NH3, H2O as well as H2. This was the thing. Okay, there was no nitrogen gas like this being there. Okay, so please eliminate. This is the answer. H2O in the form of water vapor. This is what I mean. Okay, so please choose your options correctly. So it's CH4, not CH3. I did that mistake someday. So please make sure it's CH4 for methane. Cool? Works? Chalo. Remember this, okay? Now the allele frequency of A, look here, allele frequency is given and that is of capital A. For capital A, that means you're talking about P. What is it, children? What is allele frequency? Is 0.6. Okay. And the allele frequency of small a, that means you're talking about Q. It is what? 0.4. Okay. Respectively. The expected frequency of heterozygous individual, the same question. This time they didn't ask you to find this thing. It was given 0.16 as Q square. This time they directly gave you Q. The same thing only. How do you find heterozygous? For heterozygous it is 2 PQ. Do not forget the 2 over here. So it will be 2 into 0.6 into 0.4, which becomes 0.48. Okay, and in percentage if you want to say, you call it 48%. Easy? You will get it easy. It is easy actually. Okay, when you get a hold of it becomes a lot more easy. Chalo, next. Which one of the following is identifiable character of Neanderthal man? So Neanderthal man brain capacity 650 to 800 cc. This is wrong because it had a brain capacity of 1400 cc. Developed prehistoric cave art? No, they were not the one that developed prehistoric cave art. It was later. Homo sapiens were the one who did it. Lived before 2 million years ago? No, children. They lived almost 1 lakh to 40,000 years ago. Buried their dead? Yes. Their brain capacity was increasing, so they had this emotional thing. So they buried their dead and they were very cautious about covering their body as well, protecting their body as well. So Neanderthal man buried their dead. This is the answer. 2017 question. Chalo, next. Identify the plants that are dominant during Jurassic period. So during Jurassic period, there are different period. One is Paleozoic era, then is Mesozoic era, then is Cenozoic era. Okay, there are different eras. Okay, even in the evolutionary history. So different organisms came through in different zones. So when you talk about Mesozoic era, which comes in between. Okay, Mesozoic comes in between. Over here you have Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous. Okay, this is about Mesozoic era. Below it there is one era. Below, after that also there is one era. So Jurassic Park you have seen. Jurassic era is where dinosaurs and everyone were very prominent. Now at this point of time plants were also developing. Okay, and you had certain type of plants which are ferns, conifers and cycads. Ferns, conifers and cycads were kind of very dominant during this particular stage. And how can I remember it? Children, there is a thing given in your NCERT which looks like this and you have to remember it. So there for example, over here, if you see, there is Cretaceous and Jurassic where they have specifically mentioned everything like this. Okay, so over here you have to have a remembrance of these things. Spinopsids, ginkgos, knit-tails, dicotyledons. Over here, herbaceous lycopods, ferns, conifers, cycads. So these are the things that you have to remember somehow. So there is no way that you can skip those. Again, I am telling you, I have given you clues and clues in the case of NEET. So if you go there, if you see the second last video, in that I have given a specific way in which you can remember it. Okay, it will be really helpful. Why I'm not explaining everything over here? Because this is a video to match your answers. Okay, sometimes a little bit of concepts obviously I am teaching, but if I go around teaching a lot of things, it will take a huge lot of time and it won't be beneficial for your revision. Okay, so for that I am recommending you watch that video. If you want, you can tell me, I can post the link over here. Okay, now find the mismatch from the following pairs. Okay, divergent evolution, thorn of bougainvillea and tendril of cucurbita. Is it correct? Yes. Both are coming from axillary bud and both are diverging and moving to different habitats and having their own things. Okay, the axillary bud is now becoming a thorn. Over here it's becoming a tendril. Adaptive radiation by Australian marsupials. Yes. So there was a common ancestor from there. Lot of kangaroo rat, kangaroo, everything they came through. Okay. Now you have natural selection. What do you mean by natural selection, my dear children? The nature itself is selecting something. The nature itself is selecting something. What do you mean by that? I will give you an example. So there were two examples. This is the plant. This is another plant. This is before industrialization. Before industries and everything were being made. This is after. Industrialization. So before, the air was really clean and since the air was clean, there were so many things like this which were known as lichens. Okay, which were known as lichens, which is a combination of alga and fungus. What is this? Lichen. So lichen is a pollution indicator. It won't be growing where pollution is very much. So after industrialization, the pollution was way too much. It was not being found over here. So lichen you had initially. Now there are two types of moth, children. One was the white-winged moth, peppered moth. You call this Biston betullaria. And there was another one which was basically black in color. This was Biston carbonaria. Okay, these both of things were there. Now, before industrialization, this guy, when it sat over here, no predator was able to see this, spot this. So what happened? Their population kind of increased way too much. But whereas when you talk about this guy, if you put a black thing over here, it will be clearly visible. So it was clearly visible and it was being eaten up. So their population kind of decreased. It was not like they were dead, but the basically population size, it decreased way too much. This guy was like, I am going to rule over here. There is no one who can rule apart from me. But what happened was, after industrialization, the whole bark and everything got dark. Lichen was also not there. So the dark one, it started surviving. If I put a dark thing over here, will you be able to see? No. Similarly, the predator was also not able to see. But if I put a white one, it was clearly visible. So their thing, it decreased, whereas their thing, it increased. So this was nature who was selecting it. The predator was coming and eating it. Even though population was caused by us, but it's nature who is selecting this particular species of moth, and now it is not being selected. And this is known as industrial. This whole thing scenario that I showed you is what? Industrial melanism. Melanin is a pigment that gives color. So this is industrial melanism, and this is an example of natural selection, my dear children. Okay, now genetic drift. Constant gene frequency. Genetic drift means you are changing the gene frequency. Usually what happens is that, for example, over here, I have a population. And over here, there is green bug in way too much amount. And there is white bug. Okay, so I say green is dominant, is a feature that shows when there is dominant allele, capital A. This is a feature when there is small a. So gene frequency of this guy is way too much. Okay. And according to Hardy-Weinberg principle, the gene frequency of a population remains same every generation after generation. So that is Hardy-Weinberg's principle. But there were a lot of factors which were going to destroy Hardy-Weinberg's principle. They were going to say the gene frequency cannot be same. And that one such factor is genetic drift, which can happen anytime. So genetic drift that means the frequency of one particular population can change by chance also. So for example, I was walking in a park and I stamped on this particular region. What happened? Basically, all the organisms which were there, they got died. Now, the frequency of this particular allele, gone. This allele increased. They will reproduce. Now, there is no competition. They will increase their number. So, you see, frequency is changing over here. Now, this frequency change is occurring by chance, my dear children. It is occurring by chance. So, that is what you mean by genetic drift. So, constant gene frequency is not achieved by genetic drift. There is a change. So, this is what? Wrong statement. This becomes your answer. So if it is not visible, I'll works. Next, identify the correct equation for Hardy-Weinberg's principle or Hardy-Weinberg's law. So there is only one, that is this. P plus Q square is equals to 1. P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equals to 1. This is the expanded version of it. Cool. Next. The formation of two species from one ancestral species is known as what? The formation of two species from one ancestral species. Any idea? This one ancestral species which moves to different habitat. For example, you have bougainvillea and you have cucurbita. They move to different habitat. They form differently. This is an example of what, children? Example of divergent evolution. Always remember, divergent evolution, no, they will have a common ancestry. The opposite of it is convergent evolution, which won't have any common ancestry. At least recent common ancestry would not be there. So this becomes your answer. Formation of two species from one ancestral species, which has to be this. Next, the ancestors of modern day frogs and salamanders are. So I hope you know that There were fishes, then came amphibian, okay, then came reptiles, from reptiles came birds and also mammals. Over here, the fishes to amphibians, no, in between this there is a link that was an organism which was there, which was known as lobfin or coelacanth. This lobfin or coelacanth basically had strong fins which made it was a fish, but it was able to move on land also. And I hope you know that amphibians are the one that lives both in land and water. So this was the link that was there. So ancestors of modern day. So from here, from this guy came our frogs and salamander. Got it? So in reptiles, who come children? Snakes, lizards. Birds, you know, mammals, you know. So basically this is coelacanth. The ancestors of modern day frogs and salamanders are coelacanth. Works? Cool? Chalo. Next. Which compounds were used by Miller in his experiment for obtaining amino acids and other organic substances? I told you it was ammonia, it was methane, it was hydrogen and water vapor. So the first option is the correct option. You don't have to go. How do you write ammonia, children? NH3. How do you write methane? CH4. How do you write hydrogen? Hydrogen gas like this. Water vapor, H2O. Works. Or you just write water vapor. Okay? Next. Thorns of bougainvillea and tendrils of cucurbita example of so many times this question has come. So they have a common ancestry, they moved, okay, they have a common structure as well. That is the axillary bud which moved and formed what? Tendrils and basically thorns. So this is an example of divergent evolution. Easy. So many times this question come. Oh, again, you see this question also. From his experiments, S.L. Miller produced amino acids by mixing the following in a closed flask: CH4, H2, NH3 and water vapor at 800 degrees Celsius. What is the answer, my dear children? This is the answer or this? So everything is the same, or basically this is the answer or this? Everything is the same. Children, please understand. CH4 is methane. NH3 is ammonia, water vapor to you know, H2 is hydrogen, and the temperature is 800 degrees Celsius. 800 degrees Celsius was the temperature in which he worked. So this becomes your answer. Okay, it was not 600, it was 800, and this is CH4. Don't go and write CH3 or NH4 there. Okay, it's very much important. CH4, that is methane and ammonia. So many times this question have come. Now, evolution of different species in a given area starting from a point and spreading to other geographical areas is known as, I told you, evolution of a species evolving from where they are starting from a point and spreading to other geographical areas. So this is an example of adaptive radiation. Okay, this is an example of adaptive radiation. Now, the evolution that they show is divergent evolution. The evolution that they show is what? Divergent evolution. Why are they showing divergent evolution? This is a common ancestor, and if there is a common ancestor and they are evolving because of the different habitats, it is an example of divergent evolution. Okay, so this mechanism is adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation would be leading to divergent evolution. Easy. Now this is the last question from the KCET. Now I have certain questions from the NEET category, but I have made sure that I have just chosen the easy questions, okay, not the difficult ones. So you can solve it very, very easily, okay. Now, dinosaurs dominated the world in which of the following geological eras? Now, if you are a fan of, let's say, Jurassic Park, okay, the movie that was released, you might be knowing the dinosaurs basically dominated during the Jurassic era. Okay, and Jurassic era comes under what? Comes under Mesozoic. So you have Mesozoic option, you have Jurassic option. Which one should you choose? Jurassic, because that is more specific. Okay, they dominated in this particular era only. Again, the chronological order of human evolution from early to recent is, so early to recent, older to recent. So first we have Australopithecus, Ramapithecus. So this cannot be true because Ramapithecus has to come first. Okay, they have to come first. I'll tell you once more. So you had Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus. Okay, now Rama sounds like Ram. So these were the organisms that would give rise to what? Humans. So After this comes Australopithecus. Then from here, the first human like Homo habilis habibi. Then Homo erectus. Then from here to, what is it? Homo sapiens, that is the modern day human. This is the most recent one. And then Homo neanderthalensis. So this is the order. We have to go according to this order. In between this, there is one more thing, but in your NCERT, it's not mentioned. So Australopithecus and then Ramapithecus, that cannot be true. Ramapithecus, then Australopithecus, then Homo habilis, Homo erectus, that is true. Ramapithecus, Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, this is true. But let's see the other options. Ramapithecus, Homo habilis, Australopithecus, no, that is not true. First Australopithecus, then this. And I'll tell you features of them also. Okay, Ramapithecus were using both their forelimbs and hind limbs of moving. They move like chimpanzees. Australopithecus, they kind of stopped using both their hand and leg. Instead, they started walking a bit. Okay, but it's not fully. Now, more human-like features were found in Homo habilis, which they were organisms who didn't had meat. Okay, they used to have fruit-based food. They didn't have meat at all, and they were tool makers. Then Homo erectus came. They were the people who started having meat and all. Now from them, Homo neanderthalensis came. Okay, from here, it was all in Africa. Now they moved to Europe and all. Okay, from here you got Neanderthalensis, where basically they were organisms which had high brain capacity, and they started protecting their body. They started covering their body and everything. Okay, and one more thing was unique, that is they buried their dead. That was also one thing. Now the recent one was Homo sapiens, which also evolved from them only, but it came recently. Okay, so this is a thing that you need to remember. So they had more ape-like and that had more human-like features, which is why that evolved to be humans. Now, which of the following had the smallest brain capacity? Now you only think from here, okay, which of them? You are given an option Homo, Homo, Homo. So Homo starts from here. Which among them will be having the smallest? It is Homo habilis. If this is 500, again I am saying, this is 650 to 800 cc, this is 900 cc, and this is 1400. Okay, wait. This will be 1400 cc. Cool. Chalo. So this was Homo habilis. Next, match the hominids with their correct brain size. Homo habilis we discussed right now. It should be having the lowest one, so 650 to 800 cc. 500 is there in Australopithecus. Now, Homo neanderthalensis, it has to be having the greatest, so it is 1000. So what shall I say? A goes with 3. A has to U. So shift that side. Okay, so I'll write A, B, C, D. A has to go with 3, so this is not the option. Rest all of them are a tiebreaker. Homo neanderthalensis, it is 1400 cc. 1400 cc. So B with 4. So B is with 4, there is only one, which is this. Let's see the other options. Now C should be with 1. Homo erectus is with 900, this is also correct. Homo sapiens, it is not given in your book, but it was actually slightly less than Neanderthalensis, so 1350. So you might be thinking, if they are the recent ones, then why do they have smaller? But yeah, that's how it worked. Okay, so this becomes your answer. It is not given in your NCERT. But yes, cool. Chalo. A gene locus has 2 alleles A and A. If the frequency of dominant allele is P is equals to 0.4, then what will be the frequency of homozygous, dominant, heterozygous? Okay, so we have to find first A, small a. How can you find that? You can find it with P plus Q is equals to 1. This is the equation to find that. So 0.4 if it this, then Q will be equal to what? Q is equals to 1 minus 0.4, which is 0.6. So you have Q also, which is 0.6. Now you have to find homozygous dominant. For homozygous dominant, P square. So that means 0.4 into 0.4, that is 0.16. Okay. Now you have to find homozygous recessive, that means Q square. That means A square, which is 0.6 into 0.6. What is 0.6 into 0.6, my dear children? It is 0.36. It is 0.36. Now, next thing, what do you need to find? What do you need to find? Chalo. heterozygous individuals. So for that you need 2 PQ. Now we have to replace 2 into 0.16 into 0.36. What is the answer? 2 into 0.16 into 0.36. It has to be what? Just give me a second, children. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay, so my phone rang and it was very audible. Okay, so 2 into P and Q. Okay, I did one more mistake over here, which you should not be doing on the day of examination. And what is that mistake? That mistake is I included P square and Q square over here. So I have to put P and Q over here, children. P and Q, which is P is equals to 0.4 and Q is equals to 0.6. Now it becomes 2 into 0.24, sorry. So it becomes 0.48. So your heterozygous is 0.48. That means you're talking about A and A, it is 0.48. Let's see. A and A is 0.48. So this is an option, this is an option. Let's see. Capital A is 0.16. Capital A is 0.16. So this becomes wrong. Okay. And small a is 0.36. So this becomes right. This is the correct option. Cool? Easy, no? It is easy. Next. Next. Theory of inheritance of acquired characters was given by. Theory of inheritance of acquired character. What do you mean by that? Basically, if it is said that we are going to inherit things that we acquire throughout the lifetime. It is not in my genes. For example, that was given by Lamarck, okay, and this is also known as Lamarckism, where basically he said the giraffe was there and the small giraffes were there with smaller necks, and they were kind of extending their necks like this because the food was out of reach. And he said because they did like that, this is an acquired character, some of them had tall neck and it moved on in the next generation. But this is not the case. You cannot acquire things. You cannot acquire things. You cannot inherit things that you have acquired. For example, to prove that he is wrong, another scientist, what did he do? There was a mice, he cut its tail. Okay, he cut its tail, and now another mice, but again I cut the tail and made them breed, and now what did he have? A mice with a tail. If theory of inheritance of acquired character was correct, then this is something that I am acquiring, basically the small tail. So it should be there in the small progeny also, but it was not there. Because this cutting is an acquired thing, I am acquiring it throughout my lifetime. This is not bringing any change in the genes of an organism, in the cells, in the chromosome of the organism. So this cannot be inherited. But this was initially given by Lamarck. Okay, this is known as theory of inheritance of acquired character, which was dismissed later on. Okay. Now, Darwin's finches are good example of what? Darwin's finches are good example of adaptive radiation. From a point, they are moving to different locations. One eat insect, one eat seed and everything. So they have different type of beaks as well. Cool. So this is an example of adaptive radiation. Next one. The changes of the lighter colored variety of peppered moth Biston betullaria to its darker variety Biston carbonaria is due to. So initially you had Biston betullaria which was having white colored thingy. Right. Now it changed to Biston carbonaria, which looks like this. How did this thing happen? So basically this thing happens when there is change in the genetic material, and this change is known as mutation. Whenever we say there is a spontaneous change, okay, whenever we say there is a spontaneous change in the genetic material, okay, in the genetic material, it would rise to give out different characters. Now this can be good, this can be bad. Some mutations can lead to cancer also, or any type of diseases. So some things can be good, some variations can be good, some can be bad. But this spontaneous change is known as mutation, that is occurring in the gene. So this becomes your answer. So this is a good change that happened, and you have different variety that was having black colored wing, and they survived. Next thing. Which of the following are homologous organs? Homologous means they have a common ancestry, but they have moved to different location, and now their functions are totally different. Okay, examples, wings of bird and hands of human. Wings of bird and hands of human. So did we have a common ancestor? Yes, apes and mammals had a common ancestor, that is reptiles. Okay, but how can I say that, ma'am? Basically, okay, but what is common? Their anatomical structure is not common. It is common. The wings of the bird also have radius, ulna and everything, just like how we have. We also have radius, ulna, metacarpals, carpals and everything. But these things have been evolved differently. For them it might be shorter, for us it might be longer like this. So wings of bird and hands of human are example of homologous organs, and this is also example of divergent evolution. Nails of human being and claws in animals. Wings of bird and wings of insect. Over here, wings of birds and wings of insect, both of them, wings are being used to fly. There is a common function, and if there is a common function, that means it is an example of analogous organ. That is the opposite of analogous organ. And you see, it's a bird, it's an insect. Both of them are different. Invertebrate, vertebrate, no common ancestry or no recent common ancestry. So this is known as convergent evolution, the opposite of divergent evolution. So every time the question comes from this, now you'll be able to answer this. So why does this happen? So bird and butterfly is basically responsible for flying in the air. So this is a common habitat they are having. There is common habitat, which is why they have certain things to live in there, right? So both of them will be having wings, but the wing of butterfly is papery. You can just break it off, right? Don't do that part. And then wings of bird is not like that. It has feathers, it has bones and everything. So structurally it is kind of different. Whereas when you talk about divergent evolution, it is having structural similarity. There is structural similarity, but if you see the functions are different. Over here, if you see, here the functions are what? Same, that is flying. So this becomes an example of analogous organ, and this is an example of convergent. We are converging to a point. Convergence means converging to a point, to the same habitat, which is making them look similar or basically have similar properties. Not look similar, basically have similar properties. Works? Next, the concept of chemical equation is based on. Chemical equation is the thing that I said. Inorganic organisms coming together to form organic compounds, and this organic compounds giving rise to life forms. So interaction of water, air and clay under intense heat, effect of solar radiation on chemicals, possible origin of life by combination of chemicals under suitable environmental condition, crystallization of chemicals. What is the answer? Possible origin of life by combination of chemicals under suitable environment condition. This is the answer. Okay, so possible origin of life by combination of chemicals under suitable environmental condition. This is a thing that is explained in chemical equation, concept of chemical equation. Cool? Chalo. Next thing. Which was absent in the atmosphere at the time of origin of life? NH3, it was there. H2, it was definitely there. CH4, definitely there. What was not there? It was a reducing environment. It was a reducing environment, my dear children. That means oxygen is not there. Oxygen was not there. Later it was formed. If oxygen was there, then you could find many life forms. So oxygen came later. Okay, when the sun fell on the water vapor, it broke it, there was oxygen. So that's a slow process that happened. Initially it was not there. So there's a reducing atmosphere which was there, and there was high temperature as well. So with this, we have completed the 30 questions from the chapter that is evolution, my dear children. So your marks also have to get evolutionarized after seeing this video. So you should be definitely scoring. As I told previously, it didn't carry much marks, this particular chapter, but since strategies of food enhancement and stuff like that has been removed, we can expect questions coming out from this chapter as well. So please give attention to this. This is a chapter from your topic from your 12th standard, so you have to pay attention and you have to work really hard for it. Works? So that's all. Now, a task for you. If you have completed evolution chapter completely, you have to tell me that evolution is done %. Okay, if you're done, only if you're done. Whichever day you're done with that, you have to comment that. Okay, when you're confident enough that any question from this chapter I could be solving. So you might say there's no day like that, ma'am. It would be there. Okay, at least solve a few questions, at least solve these questions once more after a week. Okay, after a week when you solve these questions, and if you're able to score 30 on 30, then tell me that I scored 30 on 30. Okay, after a week. After studying the chapter properly. This thing you can do, right? So that's all. And if you think that this particular video was useful, then definitely do not forget to subscribe to our channel, that is Deeksha Karnataka. And also I believe that you are studying really hard. So do not be disappointed. Just give your 100% every single day. That's all. So bye-bye. Take care.